We were talking about the Enchantress and how she was affecting America and the West. Totally, the sexual revolution, totally transforming everything. And the result of this are broken marriages, broken homes, broken families. These are dark spirits. But interesting. One of the things that, I told you that this goddess is called the harlot, or the prostitute. She was a prostitute goddess. In the ancient language of in Greece, the way you speak about a prostitute, she would be called a porne. We get the word porn from this goddess. Porn. Mm-hmm. Actually, pornography begins with this goddess. The first pornographic literature in the world is the literature of this goddess. The first images of pornography really come from this goddess. So this is the goddess of pornography. And so this is part of her casting. She's also called the seductress, casts her spell over America and the West, and through pornography has enchanted a nation. On top of that, we have the word erotic literature, erotic culture. Well, the word erotic comes from the Greek word eros. Eros is a god who was the son of this goddess. Aphrodite is the same goddess. So she actually gives birth to erotica and pornography. I'm just going to throw this in. She also is the goddess of the occult, witchcraft. At the same time, you have 1960s sexual revolution. You have the revival of witchcraft. Right now in America, there are more witches than there are Presbyterians. So there's the revival of the occult, the revival of New Age. All is part of the paganizing of the nation. Now, let me go fast to the next one. The next one of the Dark Trinity is called the Destroyer in the Return of the Gods. And this is the god who causes parents to offer up their children as sacrifices. Now, it's horrific. Yet, all over the pagan world, you had human sacrifice. It wasn't such a strange thing. You had human sacrifice. And all over the ancient world, or the pagan world, you actually had the offering up of children. And you know what the only thing that ended that? The gospel. The gospel ended the child sacrifice wherever it went. Ended human sacrifice wherever it went. So here's the thing, but here's the warning. Remember the parable. If the house becomes empty of God, the spirits are returning. So this ancient spirit of the destroyer is coming back to the world, back into culture, back to the West, back to America, and through the West to the world. But it's all there. So look what happens, Adnan, like clockwork. First Baal, or the first god, you have the turning away from God in the early 60s. Then the Enchantress, you have the sexual revolution, 60s. Then as you get to the end of the 60s, you have now the offering of children, abortion. And here it is. It had to be there. This is pagan. We are doing what they did. And by the way, it's not just infanticide. Back then, one of the parts of pagan culture was actually abortion and infanticide. Now we're even moving to infanticide here. So people say, well, how can you compare that? Well, back then they offered up thousands of their children. We have offered up over 60 million of our children. This is the spirit of the destroyer. Okay. And I won't go into it, but in the Return of the Gods, I also show how that when the ancient child sacrifices, they offer it up to this god or these gods. That's actually what is being reenacted now in abortion in modern form, but it's going through the same ancient mysteries of child sacrifice. Okay. Now let me go further, just because of time. Let me go further with this. And that is, there's a god who I call, actually who you already know, but I call her then the Transformer. And the reason I call it this is the goddess of sexual immorality. This is that Enchantress. But she's also the Transformer. Why? In the ancient tablets, I had to look at the ancient inscription. She says, I am a woman, I am a man. It says, this is the goddess. It says in her hymn, she has the power to turn men into women and women into men. Does that sound familiar? This is the next part. So here's the mystery, Adnan. Is that a
destroyer god? Or are we talking is that a god of destroyer?
This is the goddess. This is the Enchantress. This is the goddess of sexuality. And she's also she's the one who transforms. So think about that. Look what's happening to the West in America. What you're going to see now as it goes on, because it doesn't. The spirits don't reveal themselves all at once. As it progresses, you're going to start seeing a war against gender. And so, what do you see in the night? What do you see? There's a spirit in the culture That is, it's the goddess. It says she feminizes men and she masculinizes women. And so that has been happening in our culture, number one. It's been happening in a million ways, whether it's radical feminism, whether it's whatever, but whether it's to attack men, attack their male leadership, whether it's to take men away from fatherhood and away from the protection, their role, whether it's to channel men into pornography, whether it's to break up, destroy marriages. Well, that